Hello everyone, my name is David Varsimashvili. Are compliance regulations becoming so complex that they are killing the businesses? This compliance is no longer a side function. It's a core operational requirement. AML assessment is no longer just a regulatory requirement. It's a fundamental necessity to safeguard organizations from financial, legal, and reputational risks. Do sanctions work or not? The answer is both yes and no.
Hello, everyone, and welcome you to today's webinar brought to you by the Soltesz Institute. My name is Viktoria. I'm the founder of the Soltesz Institute, and we are bringing you different courses, webinars, and all important knowledge around payments and banking. Our mission is to fight for an ethical and transparent industry, and we are getting all into the nitty-gritty of all different payment and banking related subjects with our invited speakers. So today, I'm honored to have Filippo with us from A2A Consulting. And Filippo has a lot of experience about payments and banking that he will share with us today. And today's topic is a very interesting one. It's all around accounts to account A2A payments. And we're going to get into all of those details that what are these A2A payments? Why are they important? And what different services that these type of payments can offer. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Welcome, Filippo. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please tell us a bit more about yourself. How did you end up in payments? And tell us a bit more about your area of expertise in banking and payments.
I think that as everyone, you end up in payments like randomly. I was offered a job when I was very young at 21 in this industry that at the beginning you think about should be a very boring industry, but then you discover that it's definitely not boring, so you end up falling in love with it, as I did. And I did a lot of different jobs, always in the commercial or strategy side of the payment industry, and a couple of years ago opened my business where we are trying to make sure that this digital payment space becomes more and more successful in Italy, mainly where we are based. We are based in Venice, Italy, but hopefully to have this mission of a cashless future also for the future.
Nice. Thank you very much. So tell us a bit more about what A2A Consulting is doing and then how you're helping the clients with your payment and banking knowledge.
Yes. So we have two business lines, let's say. We have the A2A Consulting, where we help merchants, e-commerces to either handle their payment technologies to improve the conversion rate of an e-commerce, or to try to make sure that payments for them are not just a cost line on the budget, but to make sure that they exploit the payment opportunity as much as possible. And the second business line is the A2A Solutions, where we scout technologies, mainly alternative payment methods around the world, and we try to bring them either in Europe or mainly in Italy. Alternative payment methods like wallets, like buy now, pay later, or like to account payments, which probably we don't have to call them alternative payment methods anymore. But maybe we will talk about this later, right?
Definitely. Then let's talk about it now. So tell us a bit more about what are those account-to-account payments and why do you think that they are not alternative payment methods? What are they? How
Yes.
do they work?
Yes. There are very different definitions about account-to-account payments, either around the world, and it's very fragmented. I will try to do a brief history of payments, try to be short, I promise you,
Please.
Victoria.
No, go
when we
as long
speak
as you
about
want.
when we speak about payments, we have to think about moving money from one bank account to the other, right? To my bank account, to the business bank account, or business to business. That's very simple definition about payments. Historically, we had to take our money, our cash from a bank account. I will give this cash to the merchant, and the merchant will bring that cash to his bank account, right? This is a very simple flow of how payments worked in the past. But then, the more global world, more digitalized world, this was not possible and not scalable. So not having in place really a great technology in the past, not very fast, the players that allowed this flow to happen were intermediaries like card schemes, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or all the local schemes, or more in the future, wallets, PayPal, or like many other that we have around the world. There was this need of an intermediary who could handle this payment, who could handle rule that could connect bank accounts from all over the world to other bank accounts from all over the world. Because of course there are thousands of banks around. Account-to-account payments, to me, is a technology that allow to remove these intermediaries, because now we have a technology that could connect these thousands of banks, can move money from one bank account to the others without intermediaries in the middle. This, to me, is the definition of account-to-account payments. Brings back to the root of payment from moving money from one bank to the other in the fastest, most efficient way possible. Is this clear, this idea? What do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's crystal clear. Is it something that we can imagine, for example, when we are talking about, let's say, open banking, right? So the open banking is an added layer, which is connecting the sender bank accounts with the recipient. So it makes my life easier that I don't have to type in the 16-digit, 18-digit bank account number. I mistype one single number and the whole
Yes.
transaction doesn't go through. So it's basically something similar. Is it open banking? Is it more than open banking? Is it less than open banking? So what's this definition exactly?
I think it's much more than open banking. Open banking is just one way of doing it, which is developing in Europe mainly, but also in other countries. I really think that as a basic definition, if we have to look at what they are, we have to distinguish in two main categories. One is the push payment. So it's a push payment that me as a payer approves so that my money goes from my bank account to the other party bank account. For this webinar, let's always refer to a consumer to business user. So me as a consumer, I push a payment from my bank account to the bank account of the merchant. The other category is the pooled payment. So it's where me as a consumer, I will allow the merchant to pull money, so to withdraw money from my bank account directly without my approval every time. This is a first macro definition of what we can find in the account-to-account space, which is much more than just the open banking where me as a sender will send money through a flow that we will see also later in this webinar what this is about. And it's probably one of the biggest innovation that we have seen recently. But let's go again back to the basic. It's either me approving moving money from my bank account to another bank account, or the merchant withdrawing money without my permission every time to do this. So this is the first, let's say, to put a bit of order, the first definition that I give.
Right. So everybody now thinks around, setting up a standing order, for example. So when I am paying my electricity provider or I'm paying my water bill, I'm giving, let's say, a standing order, meaning that every month there's a certain amount of money which is leaving my bank account going towards. But the other one is a direct debit, which is like a standing order, but in this case, the amount can vary. So I am allowing the water board or the electricity authority to take money from my account, as you said, without my approval. So direct debit,
Correct.
open banking, standing order. So these are all within this account-to-account, basically transaction category, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the use cases for those are hundreds. You mentioned correctly that if we think about the direct debit, the amount can change. And we always tend to think about those for recurring transaction, right? For subscription to either digital products or subscription for whatever you want to buy every month, for example. But we are seeing a trend in this where a direct debit can also be used in the retail space. I'll give you an example of what I do at Amazon, for example. I have my bank account connected to Amazon, and every time there is not a fixed frequency where I buy at Amazon. I buy maybe once a week or once a month, depending on what I want to buy. But I have my bank account connected. And that is also account-to-account payment. And I don't have to approve it every time. I do a purchase on Amazon. There is no strong customer authentication, no further authentication needed. And that simply is Amazon withdrawing money from my bank account. That is also account-to-account payments. And it's always, sometimes we always think about these push payments, which, yes, it's fundamental. There are a lot of use cases. But these direct debits, or we will see VRP in the UK, and there is many development in the space, that is also, to me, account-to-account payments.
Nice. So what are those services that this type of payments, account-to-account payments offer? We mentioned a couple of use cases, but is there any unique services that we can connect to that? Is there something unique or specific about this?
Yeah. Again, to give a bit of order, I will separate these services into categories. The pay-in categories, which we mentioned, right? It's the possibility of me as a user to send money directly to the bank account of the merchants. And the standard use case here is e-commerce, where I will choose account-to-account payments. At the checkout, I will choose my bank. I will be redirected to my bank. I will approve the payment. I will approve the bank transfer, for example, and the merchant will receive the confirmation. This is one paying model. The second, we mentioned already again, the subscription model. So I will give to the merchant the possibility to withdraw money either with a certain frequency or when I buy something at e-commerce, of course, at the store. And this is the second use case of the pay-in. So me as a merchant, I will select an account-to-account payment provider to make sure that I receive money from the user. The second category, again, I think underestimated in terms of account-to-account payments, are the payout capabilities. And doing payouts, it's something that every company does. And I will just give you some examples. There are some payouts that every kind of company needs to do, like paying suppliers or like paying salaries, for example. Having a technology to make sure that process runs smoothly, that is where account-to-account payments are super important. Because from my bank account, my business account as a company, I will do bank transfers, of course. And the fastest and the more efficient this process is, the better are my operations. Then there are some use cases where payouts are key to the business model. Let's think about lenders, for example. the faster I'm able to provide the loan to the user, that becomes unique sales proposition for me as a lender. And I can send money from my bank account to the person who borrowed the money. If I can do this instantly and with low cost for everyone, that become a USP. So payouts in the account space for me are as relevant as the paying technologies. These are, let's say, the two big services that we can find in this space, I would say.
Right. So one is the pay in, one is the pay out. I feel like that there are a lot of possibility and benefits of these account-to-account payments that businesses just do not even understand that how much money they can leave on the floor by not leveraging them. So what are the key use cases for these account-to-account payments? We mentioned obviously the salary payments, the Amazon payments, the direct debit, the standing order. But is there something else? I feel like there could be some instances of real life world and real life scenarios where maybe businesses don't even think about how it can benefit them. What could be the extra opportunity to earn some money on the side? Tell us a bit more about these use cases, and how do you think that an average business can leverage these kind of opportunities?
Yes. It's always understanding your targets and what you want to achieve as a business. As you mentioned, you can really leave a lot on the table. But what do we really mean by leaving a lot on the table? I think one is, as said, from a cost perspective, maybe I'm losing a lot of money because I'm not making my operations efficient. But on the other side, and what I was referring before, to see payments as a business opportunity rather than just a cost line, is to understand where account payments can improve my business results. So the revenue part of the balance sheet. How can they do this? They can either improve the conversion rate. So more people that visited my store will convert this into a final purchase, so into money for my business. And let's imagine the use case of the e-commerce. If I have an e-commerce, maybe I have it with high average order value, or maybe I'm seeing that in some countries, people doesn't have a credit card. I'm leaving money on the table if I'm not offering account payment, because they will not convert. Or let's think about the use case where, again, if I'm buying a car, for example, and I'm at the car dealer, what do I do? How do I make sure that I will buy the car? How the dealer will make sure that they complete that sale in the fastest way possible? This is where account payments can again fit very well. I will not pay 15, 20, 30K car with a car transaction on a terminal, right? So that is always super, super important. Or imagine some use cases where there is a high risk in these transactions, like in gambling or like in the travel business. Those are high risk vertical, as we know, and account payments bring much more security into the ecosystem, both for the user and for the merchants, for many reasons. And again, here is, if I don't have a proper fraud strategy, these are money left on the table. So it's either operational efficiency, it's finding opportunities to increase the revenue side of it, and it's also about security. So I would say that these three topics are important, of course, for a merchant, and that's why they should look at account payments to work on these three topics at the same time.
I remember when I was running an account department and we needed to pay out the salaries, it was an absolute mayhem because we just needed to fill out a very specific form for the bank. And we had 300-400 employees that they needed to be paid at the same time. So we just needed to copy paste the name, the account number, the salary, and there was always one mistype. There was always some mistake. And then there was always some complaint that someone didn't get the salary. And this is very serious because it was very prone to mistakes. And also you're dealing with people's money. So of course it was damaging for the reputation of the company as well, that every month someone just didn't get the salary on time because we just mistyped one account number. And you would be surprised that there are still a lot of companies who are doing these kind of activities manually. There are not even an understanding that what kind of tools and what kind of fintech innovations are available for them to make this process much easier and obviously cheaper, right? So
Yes,
these
totally.
account payments, there are a lot of opportunities here. And as you mentioned, there could be a lot of opportunities here for earning a side revenue as well. So when we are thinking about, as you mentioned, that the payouts, for example, for content creators, or as you mentioned, also for even the gambling industry, the quicker you pay out to the person, maybe the quicker you get back the deposit. So it's also increasing your revenue. So there are a lot of interesting use cases for this. And I think it gets down to the individual business and their payment and banking strategy to even start to ask those questions, that how these payment methods can benefit us from both the pay-ins and for the payouts as well, right?
Yes, totally. I mean, that manual work that you were mentioning for that salary case, it's something that it's unacceptable, if we have to say, for the technologies that are available. And it's not only if I have to pay out, but even for the pay in, there are still a lot of e-commerces or businesses that accept, they still call it manual bank transfer. So you put at the checkout, please send the money here at this IBAN, IT, blah, blah, blah. That is, from a reconciliation perspective, it's a nightmare for the business. It's a nightmare as a user experience. So there is a need of fast, high amount transaction. There is the technology, still the gap of this is huge. And yes, mistakes are one of the issues, definitely, that these technologies can solve.
And even when you're sending an invoice to one of your clients, right, to pay their consulting fees or any other service that you provide, what do? You write an invoice with the bank details at the bottom, but want to turn it into a PDF. Maybe they can't copy it. Maybe the accountant at the receiving end, it takes 1 or 2 minutes to find out where are the bank details, type it in. So with these kind of clicks of payment links, then you can get paid cheaper, faster, more efficiently, and actually with less mistakes, right? So that can increase your account receivable function too.
Definitely. I spoke with a loan company 3 weeks ago, and they have 3 people just doing this. Just crazy. It's crazy, and they're looking for a solution to improve that, because it's the cost line for them, which is huge, without any added value. You always try to make sure that a cost adds value somehow. That's not the case. So that's why we're doing this, right?
Yes, exactly. An account payable somehow is always like a cost center. It's never a revenue center. It's not
exactly.
You want to improve because then you earn more money on that, right?
Exactly.
So yeah. So what do you think? Who are these main account payment solution providers? What are the technology out there, and how do they differ? And here I feel like that we need to go through all of those benefits and complexities versus the traditional payment methods like the cards, right? Because when you're paying with a card, it ends up in the payment provider's account, and at one point they settle you. So it's not like when you're an e-commerce company, you're selling goods and services, whatever, 20 euro per pop, and then every time someone pays you, you receive the 20 euros. No, it's a settlement once a week, once every 2 weeks, even once every month. So that obviously could be a good benefit that you receive your money directly. But there are so many alternative different payment methods, mobile payments or any other payment methods. What are these new fintech innovations regarding account-to-account payment providers exist, and how do they differ from the traditional ones, and why are they better, or why do we have more issues with them?
This answer would probably require 5 or 6 days if we have to speak about all the players that now are in the account-to-account space. I will try to, the beginning, narrow it down to Europe, which is what I also know more, but it's also probably, as everything in Europe, it's super fragmented. We see some countries where some local account-to-account payment solutions are now a standard. And as we were saying before, they're not the alternative payment method. They are the payment method for some specific countries. If we look at Blik in Poland, if we look at Ideal in the Netherlands, they since years are leading the digital payment space in the respective countries with more than 40 or 50% of the whole market. There are then some other, let's say, countries that are Blik and Ideal are pure account-to-account, so it's or based on bank transfer. But there are some other countries where, as you correctly mentioned, these mobile payments are connecting to the account-to-account space. So if we think about Bizum in Spain, or if we think about mobile pay in Denmark, or if we think about Vipps in Norway or in Sweden, there are all these local solutions that are really, I would not even say getting traction. We already are over the traction period. But these are all solutions that are very local. And every country knows how to handle it. But there still isn't, I think, a provider who is doing this for whole Europe. And that's where what you mentioned before about the open banking technology enter the space. Because how I see it is that open banking can be the chance to build an account-to-account solution that could work for all of the countries in Europe at least. So me as an Italian, I can pay Norwegian businesses from my bank account to his bank account directly. This is still not common, but open banking is the technology that was regulated by Europe in 2016. Yeah, it was the first time we spoke about the Payment Service Directive, the second one. And this could allow the PIS, so the Payment Initiation Service Providers, to integrate with a business and exploit the SEPA rails, so Single European Payments Area rails, to perform a payment. So me, Filippo, I will, in an e-commerce, I will see open banking or account accounts. I will be redirected to my bank account, and the money through the SEPA rails will go from my bank account to the Norwegian business bank account. This is, I think, the big trend that we have to follow in Europe. But again, this is developing in a very fragmented way. We have more than 500 PISP registered in Europe. So imagine to be a merchant and having to select the right one. It's a nightmare, right? There are really a lot of different players that have different strategies. Let's always have in mind this idea of creating a European account payment solution. There are those providers who are just acting as an infrastructure to make sure that they connect all these bank accounts. Or there are players like Trustly, for example, who are putting a brand on it to exploiting open banking technology, but putting a brand. So I will pay with Trustly, for example, and from my bank account, money will go to all the merchants that accept Trustly. So it's very, I would say, fragmented. Now we should see a consolidation about all these providers, but that's a huge challenge for a merchant, for sure, because it's not easy to understand who will win, what my user really wants, and to understand this technology is very complex. And for sure, we are not helping them to do this by having this fragmentation. But as you can see, it's exciting times for this, at least in Europe.
Hello everyone, my name is Viktoria Soltesz and I'm the founder of the Soltesz Institute. Startups fail And if they fail, most probably they are failing because they don't have the thought out and proper channels for payments and banking.
Hello everyone, my name is David Vartimashvili. Compliance is no longer a side function. It's a core operational requirement.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Marcia Klinget-Smith. Instant Payments is transforming the way money moves all across the globe, across all the different industries.
Why do you think that we don't have one solution which everybody can connect to? How comes that it became so fragmented? I understand the local banks, maybe there is a difficulty that if you're a local provider that you need to be connected to every single local bank, which takes time, sign the contracts, have the negotiations and whatnot. But in this way, is it SEPA instant payment directive wants to summarize everything under one hat, and maybe that wants to be the pan-European, having everything under one umbrella kind of solution? What do you think? That is this fragmentation going to last longer? Is there a private company which is going to come and hoover up everything under one hub, or is going to be the replacement for that is the SEPA instant payment, as we see that Europe trying to get in the game on this way?
So instant payments are for sure allowing the acceleration of the adoption of account-to-account payments, because it was one of the weakness of account-to-account payments. It's for sure not fast. It's something that doesn't work on weekends, doesn't work at night, which is crazy, right? It's, for me, the fact that the payments cannot go through on Saturday, it looks like middle age, right? But this will for sure accelerate this. The fragmentation is typical of Europe. This is very us in how we behave usually. And there's going to be I don't know the future, but there's going to be, I think, two possible ending of this. One is all this payment method finds a way to connect between each other. Because me as an Italian, I will use Bancomat Pay, for example. I like to do it. I have value-added services in my app, how I interact with my bank. But I will have the need to connect with the local payment method. Technology can allow this. There is the European Mobile Payment Association, for example, that is trying to do that. And they call it, I think, in a very explicative way, which is the roaming. So when I use my phone, I go to the UK or to Norway or wherever, I will use my phone with my contract with the telco provider, and I can go anywhere. That's the same that should happen in payments. So this is the first direction. The other one, yes, it can be a winner's take it all ending. Is this going to be the case of one single open banking provider? Is it going to be maybe Wero or some other strong provider who will be able to win this? I don't know. But we have to solve the issue of a business model for the banks, because the bank account is still the main character here. And bank accounts means the bank. What card schemes were really good at was to create a model that was allowing the banks to invest in this technology, to invest in commercially, make sure that everyone has a card. They have a revenue streams from it. With account-to-account payments, their revenue stream is much lower. Then this is a separate discussion that we can have, and I think it's super interesting. But local banks still rely on local schemes because they get money from them. And we will need to be able to commercially solve this issue. And when I say as an ecosystem, but these are the two directions that we can take. I don't know who will win, but again, as I ended the last answer, exciting times.
Definitely. And good opportunities for everyone who wants to step into this industry now, because there have never been better opportunities for scaling up and opening the products and services to new markets. What do you think? What happens internationally? So yes, maybe with the SEPA, maybe with the SEPA Instant, with the open banking all over Europe, we're going to resolve these issues. But how about all of those payments which are going outside of Europe? Is there any way that we can reconcile all of those rails with the American ACH system, for example? Or how are we going to get involved all of those emerging markets, bank accounts from Asia, from Africa, from Latin America? What do you think? Is there going to be somehow some kind of reconciliation, some kind of a global standard? Because as you mentioned, the banks don't really have a skin in the game. They don't really want to change anything. Don't rock the boat. I'm already earning. Why do I need to implement new integration with the million ways to fail? Plus, they don't even have a revenue stream on it. So what do you think? What's happening with these international global transactions, and what can be the motivation for the banks to join in this scheme and actually play ball with everyone globally?
I think it's the question in general that we will face in the following years, because it was already super confusing to speak about Europe only, right? And the reconciliation or how to move money within the same region. But if we look at account-to-account payments, there are some regions that are much, much more advanced than Europe. Imagine like the unified payment interface in India, or about the phenomenal case of Pix in Brazil, which in few years went from 0 to billions of volumes on a monthly basis. Those are key areas where we will need to address the topic. At the moment, I'm just able to use cards or to use very expensive international schemes like SWIFT or others to make sure that money moves around these regions. We will have to solve it. Still, I wasn't able to find a provider who can do this. Happy if someone who is listening has some names, please send me some names, because that's the next big challenge that we need to face. And to go back to your question about why banks should do this, again, this is my pure personal opinion, of course. As a consumer, if my bank will be able to provide me these kind of services of moving money internationally, the bank will make me happy. And it's not going to be a wallet or big tech making me about that. It's going to be the bank. This will mean that I will live within the bank ecosystem more often. And that can be the opportunity for the bank to, of course, make money, either from my data, either by selling me extra services because I'm living into their ecosystem. That I think it's a long-term thinking that banks needs to have. But, the famous quote that banking is needed, but banks are not, are very relevant when we speak about account-to-account payments. Because at the same time, I need to pay, I need to move money, but I don't need bank necessarily to do that. Account-to-account payments is the opportunity for banks to stay in the payment game. This would be my summary of this. I hope I was clear.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that, yes, I agree with you, that banks as a middleman does not need to be present in the same way as the open banking providers, who are just a layer between bank to bank, or the mobile payment providers, who are, again, just a layer between the bank to bank payments. But we see quite the opposite, that since those banks do not want to or cannot communicate with each other, because it would be impossible to connect all the banks with every bank all over the globe, we do need these kind of intermediaries. But that just increases opportunity for mistakes. It adds more to the cost. It gives an extra layer of difficulty for integration, for, as we mentioned, the integration for the businesses to have a unified layer of the users. So it is interesting to see that, yes, ideally banks and banks should be connected to each other to execute all of those payments. But we still see that fintech companies are coming up with different middleman layers in terms of wallets, in terms of, as you mentioned, different alternative payment methods. So it's very interesting to see that even though that we don't need them, we need them more than ever, right?
Yes, it's true. It's true. But at the end of the day, no matter if the bank is in it or not, but it's about finding the right benefits for the user and the merchants. Whoever will be able to solve that will be the winner. And cards after issue, there are a lot of benefits, but a lot of weaknesses. Account-to-account payments have their benefit and their weaknesses. Who will be able to do the best for both world, merchant and users? Those will win at the end of the day, banks or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a bit on the security as well, because oftentimes I hear the argument against the direct bank payments that, all right, once the money is gone, it's gone. I don't have an opportunity for chargeback, for dispute. I don't know where I send my money. There is a higher opportunity for fraud or scams. What do you think? Is there any built-in security standard in the account-to-account payments? If not, how we can build it, and all over, how we can make sure that all the data security is being kept, there are no leakage of important information, and banks are communicating with each other in a way that it is needed for the payment, but not more, not less, and everything is kept in place.
Yeah, this is exactly one of the challenges I was mentioning before, because from a merchant side, account-to-account payments are incredibly secure. If we think about the first use case of an account-to-account payments, the user base, I have my bank account and the money in my bank account within milliseconds, and it's impossible for those money to go back to the user. So from a merchant perspective, that is a dream, right? But if it's so good for the merchant, it means that it's not that good for the user. And I always try to distinguish the risk topic for the users, again, in two categories. One is the fact that I will perform a payment. I'm willing to perform a payment. I will do the payment, but then something happened after the payments. For that, we have in card business, we have the so-called chargeback. Also, I can guarantee to the user that if really he proves that there was something wrong after the payment, there is some way to get the money back. Still, we don't have this procedure or a rule book for account-to-account payments, which is a big topic, I think. And that's why I believe still in the e-commerce business, in the pure retail business, account-to-account payments are not yet used as cards, for example. The second one is about the fact that potentially someone can perform that payment on my behalf or can move money from my bank account on my behalf. So pure security. Here, the account-to-account payment word is saying that it's more secure to perform a payment with account-to-account solutions because you are still logging into your bank account, which is, it's very hard to get through that, right? But I believe that there is not enough volume to say that. Cards transaction, we have a lot of frauds, cards that can be stolen and so on, but people who wants to fraud, they have been working on how to crack the card system for 30 years. For account-to-account payments is something that is very new. And we don't have, I think, enough volume to say that part is more secure. So the approval, the strong customer authentication for account-to-account payments are as strong as the one for cards. I believe so, but it's my guess. There is no data yet that I found to prove that account-to-account payments are more secure than cards at this point. So this is another big challenge that we will face, not only from a real fraud numbers statistics, but also to the perception of the user. I'm really thinking about Italy here. We have always been bombed in the past by our banks to say, do not share your bank account details to anyone, neither to your sister, right? And now suddenly they tell you can give your bank account detail to anyone and it's safe. I know about how it works because I'm a payment guy, but if I tell this to my father, he will say, you're crazy, right? So this is something that we have to solve as an ecosystem to prove that it's safer and to explain that it's safer, which is probably even harder.
I agree. And we need to pinpoint also that who takes the responsibility in case something goes wrong? Is it the merchant? Is it the middle layer, open banking provider, for example, or it's the bank? Because let's say that someone gets my bank account details or even me getting scammed, then I'm intentionally sending some money to the scammer's account. Then later on, I realize, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have sent the money. What are the steps I'm making? I'm going to the police. I'm opening a file. The police contacts the bank. The bank is opening a tracer where the money has been sent. Then who was the one who facilitated the transaction? Was it the open banking layer, the mobile payment, or the alternative payment provider, whatnot? What was the route that they took to send the money to another account, another account, another account? Good luck to find the amount and pinpoint who was the enabler for those transactions. And I think also this is very serious because if we are paying with a card, clear cut, who is responsible? The Visa, the MasterCard, American Express, who are taking an insurance or responsibility that even something goes wrong because of the merchant, I will be refunded. I ordered the red shoe and I got the blue one. I can have a dispute. I can easily get my money back. And even though they don't agree with the merchant, there is the rolling reserve, there is the security deposit, there is an onboarding process, how the merchant can open a merchant account for the cards. It's clear cut that worst comes to worst, Visa or MasterCard is going to refund me. But what happens if I'm sending the money directly from my, let's say, European bank account to some account to Asia? Which bank is going to refund me for those kind of transactions? Maybe the European bank onboarded my business. They know what I am dealing with, but the Asian bank or the African bank or even the bank in the US have no business with me. So, of course, they don't know what's the source of funds. They need to rely on the onboarding process of my European bank that they do a job. And then again, whose responsibility if something is happening, I'm scamming someone or I'm, receiving monies that I shouldn't. So that's also an interesting question here, what also merchants need to consider, because that can easily end up on their risk profile is something that increases their risk. Because right now, let's say I'm a shoe shop, right? An e-commerce business. I open a merchant account. I collect money with cards. Clear cut, if something goes wrong, go and complain to Visa. We're going to sort out with the chargeback procedure. It's clear cut, it's understood. There is a security deposit. That's fine. I know what is my risk as a business in this. But when I'm integrating these account-to-account payments, direct payments, what do I need to refund? How do I justify that, yes, indeed, I did the right thing and the client is doing a friendly fraud, for example? Who is forcing me to give the money back to my clients that they are not happy with the purchase? And I think the next question also connects to that what are those steps also in integrating this account-to-account payment solution? It's not just opening a merchant account, integrating it with a couple of clicks, APIs are talking, and then, I'm good to go. For example, one-step solutions on Stripe or any kind of, I open a website on Wix, I integrate Wix payments. But if I want to integrate these account-to-account technologies, these payment solutions, what are the challenges? What are the steps? I assume it takes a lot more as well for the security, for the responsibility, for the risk as well, not just open a merchant account and get the code and integrate it on my website, right?
Yes, totally. Let's again start from really the beginning. I am a merchant who wants to select this account-to-account provider. First of all, I have to select that, which is already a pain. As we said before, there are hundreds of players. So it's not about, I know I have to find a gateway or a acquirer to accept cards. I will look at prices and so on. This is about integrating multiple. If I am an international business, I still have to integrate multiple account-to-account provider if I want to address the Polish customers, the Italian customers, the Swiss customers, or just Europe. If it's global, I have to integrate the Brazil, Indian, American, right? ACH, whatever. So that's already a complexity even before starting. Let's say that we selected them What's then the process? As every payment method, I have to contractualize, of course, the provider, and then I have to integrate it. This is not very different from integrated any other payment method. And I would say that for this is the easy part. I will connect the APIs of whatever provider or the plugin in case of an e-commerce into my platforms. But what's the challenge here? That we are speaking about payments that are not going through the provider accounts. They're arriving directly into my bank accounts, which at the beginning sounds like excellent news, right? I immediately receive the money, which is an excellent news. But there are some things that I have to consider. For example, is my reconciliation department or reconciliation procedure able to recognize all these transfers, all these payments into my bank accounts? Because what happened with cards or with wallets, they receive the money, they will put everything in order, and they will send just one bank transfer to me, and everything is reconciled. For this, the bank accounts that I put, my bank accounts, will receive a lot of different transfers. I will see a lot of different line with different reasons, and some of them will arrive instantly. Some of them will arrive in a couple of days. So it's really a mess from a reconciliation perspective to handle directly account payments. And this is the first challenge. The second one, the refunds procedure. A lot of account provider provide you the capability of having pay-ins. But then, let's say, Victoria, that you buy the shoes that you were mentioning, you want a refund. How can the merchant perform that refund? Do they have to do an account-to-account transaction from their bank account, but to which IBAN? Do they have that information or not to perform the transfer? A lot of the account-to-account providers out there do not help you with that. Cool. So you have to handle this by yourself, which is a huge complexity if you have a lot of transactions. And also from a security perspective, I'm ready. The transaction itself, it's, yes, the liability, it's from a technology perspective to make sure that works is on the provider. But what after? Which are my policies in terms of refunds? Or let's imagine some high-risk businesses like gambling. Will I pay out immediately that person? Is the IBAN that he's sending me to receive the money the right one? Is really its IBAN, or is some terroristic whatever clan around the world? That is a big topic that the account-to-account ecosystem needs to solve. There are solutions out there, but integrating account-to-account payments has a lot of benefits. Costs, it's cheaper, it's faster, better UX for most of the countries, but there are a lot of some weaknesses, and integration, it's one of them for sure.
Right. And I think the regulator also needs to get involved and get some kind of clear-cut regulation that, yes, privacy can do that. No, yes, we are not allowed to do that. If you do that, then you have to be sure. Because as you mentioned, there are a lot of moving parts when things can go wrong. And I think that's what we wanted to do with the SEPA instant payments and the PSD2, now PSD3 is coming out in Europe. But how do these account-to-account payments in Europe differ from other regions? What factors influence these differences? And if you see, how does it relate to the international fund movement? Because yes, maybe regulate everything to the dot here in Europe, good for us. The money within Europe is moving securely and safely. But as soon as we are opening up our direct banking payment to other jurisdictions which are less regulated or regulated differently, or for example, in the States now we see a lot of deregulations. How does it affect us? What is the risk that it's bringing into Europe? And what is Europe going to do about this?
Yeah, before we have to solve the European part, and then we have to solve the global issue, because what happened is that, okay, open banking, great, instant payment, great, but they're not building the regulation around that. So it's like we are going 300 kilometers per hour in terms of technologies, settlements, and the rails that we're building, but absolutely deregulated, which is not, of course, what we want and how you can make sure that the adoption, both from a merchant side and from a user side, will finally take off. As a merchant, let's say that we solve Europe, and of course, I'm also selling my shoes in Brazil. I'm also selling my shoes in India. So I will have to integrate UPix from Brazil and UPI for India. I believe it's super important, first of all, to have bank accounts there to make sure that I'm also with my business within that ecosystem. I still, as I said before, I didn't find anyone who can really yet provide these integrations and this money to move from an Indian bank account to a European bank account in a smooth way. There are some pilots. Recently, I saw that now the Torrefell ticket office is accepting UPI as a transaction, which is a first important use case. Of course, tourism is one of the areas where this fits perfectly. I suggest really local bank accounts with the hope that in 10, 15 years, Vittoria, we will do this webinar again. And there's going to be really one regulation, one technology who will be able to make sure that bank accounts around the world can speak between each other without intermediaries. That's probably not only thanks to our work, but also some more high-level work that we have to do in general about businesses and politics. I think the goal of account-to-account payments to go back to that route that I was mentioning at the beginning is just about moving money from one bank account to the other. So that's a final goal that we all should have in the next 10 to 15 years. And let's see what will happen, because technology moves too fast to predict it.
That's right. And it sounds so easy, right? What's the
Sounds
complexity
easy, yes.
one bank to another, right? And what's
Sounds
the
easy.
other thing here? But we can
Yes.
talk about this subject for years and years, and we still cannot resolve every aspect of it. And as you mentioned, in 10, 15 years, if we can talk about this over global regulation, that would be fantastic. But first, we still need to sort out the taxation issue. Why do we have different taxes in different countries before we even get to banking? I think, don't hold your breath for 10, 15 years. I don't think that we're going to get there. But
Yes.
we just need to see that we just need to navigate this as business owners, as international companies, how we can make the most out of it for ourselves, for our benefit, how to avoid all of those pitfalls and issues, and try to make sure that we are not committing any kind of crime, even unintentionally sending the money back to a customer in a different bank account or storing details in a way that we shouldn't. So I think that there is a lot of complexities here. And businesses really need to think what are those challenges and who can help them to resolve that. And definitely they need to have a seasoned professional next to them, because it's not a joke. It's money, it's funds. It is basically an important part of the business. Filippo, is there something that we haven't talked about but you want to mention? Is there something that you want to highlight before we wrap up?
As you said, I will just re-underline this. You are right. You need seasoned professional. Yes, but for what? Again, we have always to think about payments in two sides. Risk and cost lines from one side, but opportunities on the other side. Account-to-account payments, it's not something that you cannot consider. You must consider it, get help, or hire someone internally who can do that, which is a big topic, to have payments people inside companies. Because the opportunity, what you're leaving on the table and the extra opportunity is huge. So try to learn as much as you can about this world in general. That would be my suggestion for your business.
Exactly. And that's why you need to come and check out other webinars and courses as well here in the Soltesz Institute, because that's the only way that you can educate yourself. Thank you so much, Filippo. I think that there could be a lot of opportunity here to discuss more aspects about these topics. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other areas that you're also an expert. So I would like to encourage everyone, please reach out to us with the comments, recommendation. Please send us a real life case which you need to get resolved. You need help with from professionals. Filippo is I'm sure that we are very happy to reply to all of those questions and suggestions. Me too. The availability is there on the screen. And as I said, it's all about education. It's all about being up to date with the latest, and ask for help, because it is only going to get more and more complex, more and more complicated, that with the right people on your side, internally, externally, you will be able to navigate those challenges and minimize those risks that is about to hit you. So thank you so much, Filippo, again.
Thank you, Victoria.
It was an absolute pleasure. And thank you for sharing your wisdom, and really looking forward talking to you in 10, 15
The
years.
next ones.
Talk about, the overall regulation. And thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me. Ciao, ciao.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Marcia Klingensmith. Instant payments is transforming the way money moves all across the globe, across all the different industries. A recent study showed that 42% of instant payment transactions actually happen on the evenings and weekends. About $200 billion is currently locked up in the European financial system today. And instant payments really can help unlock this liquidity. The future of finance is instant, and those who adapt will thrive.